Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. So our audiences are going to be not only right across the country, but across the world this morning by the looks of it, but also there's going to be a variety of roles that are joining us. So this is the right place for you, whatever your role might be. So I'm Nicola, and my role is, and I'm the NFER Schools Partnership Manager, and my role is to support schools in choosing the right assessments for you. I've been a teacher for over 20 years, teaching across the whole primary age range, but particularly with a focus in Year 6 and with a real focus in assessment, curriculum and teaching and learning. So this is a really exciting time for school leaders, teachers and us all at NFER. I'm joined today also by my colleague Claire, who's been at the heart of NFER's online assessment journey right from the beginning. Claire's worked closely with school leaders and pupils throughout the trialling process, gaining valuable first-hand feedback. She also supports schools with setting up the portals and guiding pupils through that process. We're really fortunate to have Claire with us this morning to share that expertise with us. We're also on screen with Callum, Rupal and Lisa, and they'll be supporting with those questions. So don't worry, if you want to ask a question through the webinar, please do that. That will be answered. And we'll also have a Q&A function right at the end, depending on how much time we have, because we don't want to hold you any more than that 45 minutes, because we know your time is precious. So like I said, please make sure if you've got any AI assistance, please could you turn it off. I haven't seen that come up this morning so far. So let's move on. So we're going to be giving you a brief introduction of NFER Online Assessments, which you might hear called NOA. So here are our mascots: NOA for years 3 and 4, that's the panda, and Fern for years 5 and 6. And they will really engage your pupils throughout the whole process of the assessments. We want you to be able to see the school portal and the dashboard and how it would work. Sample questions, because I know that's really key for you, from both reading and maths tests will be shared with you today from years 3 to 6. We'll walk you through our reporting section of the portal so that you can see that too. So like I said, please make sure you ask any questions in the chat. They will be answered today, but there will be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end and in a follow-up email as well. So like I said, please don't be shy. So really, how can NFER support you? Our online or digital tests are for Key Stage 2 pupils in reading and maths. NOA can be used across the full academic year, all 3 terms, or can be employed really for an individual term if you're just looking for, say, autumn or the summer term tests. You can purchase years 3 to 6 on our website, so you can already be ready for this term's assessments. It's almost instant within sort of like saying that you want to go on there, ordering on there, and it will be really within your school within literally a few moments. So NFER online assessments are available to purchase as individual tokens or a 3-year subscription, enabling you to decide which option really best aligns with your own school. You can view more information about that pricing on our website. Callum or Rupal will be able to pop that in the chat so you can then look at that too. So our tests are aligned with the English National Curriculum and are written to the STA frameworks for test providers as a guide. Something on everyone's lips, everybody that I speak to, is how can we save our teachers time? Well, 70% of NOA questions are auto-marked to provide that instant feedback and alleviate marking time. The remaining 30% are teacher marked or teacher verified, and to give you really that further insight into those open-ended reasoning types of questions. Our year 3 and 4 trials, or 3 and 4, 5 and 6 trials, should I say, have acquired over 59,000 completed assessments, making them really reliable and robust. You'll be able to monitor and evidence pupil progression and identify those learning gaps and needs through the reporting tool that Claire will show us in a moment. NOA can be used on either Windows or Mac devices with the latest versions of Chrome, Edge, Firefox or Safari. Our interactive mascots, like I said, NOA the panda and Fern the robot, will help your pupils really navigate and engage them. Now this is over to Claire this morning for that all important walkthrough. I can't speak this morning. I do apologise, everybody.
Thank you, Nicola. Good morning, everyone. So I'm really pleased to demonstrate our online assessment platform to you this morning. Let me share my screen. Okay, and hopefully that's sharing with you now. So in the next 20-25 minutes, as Nicola's outlined, I will give you an insight into how you can set up and prepare to take the assessments. We'll look at a selection of questions from our reading and maths assessments, just so you can have the look and feel of our tests. And then I'll show you the small element of teacher marking and walk you through our reporting suite. So the screen you can see here, I'm already logged into our establishment portal. So this is the environment used by schools to administer the tests. So in the main menu, here we have administration. And this is where anyone who'll be logging into the system, either as a staff member or a pupil, will need creating. So the main contact will need to create any additional staff members who will also need access to the establishment portal. And this is where you will come to import your learner details for the learners sitting the assessments. So for the live product, we would recommend exporting the data out of your MIS system and importing into NOA as a CTF file. Okay. So under the admin icon, we have NOA. And this is where teachers will complete tasks to get ready for their learners to take the tests. And these tasks follow a logical process through these different menu options. So at the top, we can see allocate learners to an assessment. And that takes us to this screen here. So you will be able to see the different assessments that have been allocated to your school. And you will select the assessment that you want your class to take. I'm going to go with Year 4 Maths. These are our tests that have been created purely for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to go to select learners. And here I can see my learners. I'm going to select all of them and then go to review selection. So on the review page, you can just double check the names of the learners that you've brought across. You can maybe decide to allocate them extra time. That would give them 25% extra of the allocated time. You could also decide here to remove a learner if you feel there's someone who's just not going to be able to access the assessments. But once you're happy with the names on display, you can confirm. And that's going to take us to our passcodes page. So your learners will need a unique 6-character passcode to log in and take their test. And the passcode can be either common words, as you can see here. So they're made up of 2 sort of common 3-letter words, or they can be numeric. And you can decide which of those you feel your learners would maybe be able to input more easily. And that's just changed using those radio buttons. So next, in terms of preparing to take the test, so we've allocated our learners, they've got their passcodes. We want to let our learners know what to expect. So we have some familiarisation videos on this page. So the same video is appropriate for years 3 and 4, and then a different one for years 5 and 6. They are subject specific, so you select what you want, and that will take you to the video page, and you can share that as a group activity, and it will prepare the pupils and give them support on how to navigate through the assessment and how to answer the different question types. Back to our NOA menu, we have view test status. Let's have a look in there. So on here, as the assessments are in progress, you can refer back to this page. It's handy to see who's already completed their assessments, who's maybe still to start, who maybe had to pause it and still needs to come back and complete it. So that gives you the overview of where your learners are with their assessment. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual tests. So our tests are made up of a wide variety of question types, which does include longer explain and problem-solving questions, and that ensures that our tests provide full curriculum coverage. So this is the login page that your children will see, and this is where they'll enter their 6-character passcode. They'll see their name, so that confirms that they've entered the correct passcode. And then they'll see the tests that they need to take. So again, because this is for demonstration purposes only, I've only got one reading test. On our live product, the reading assessments are made up of 2 tests as they are for our paper tests. So start will launch the assessment. This is going to take me into a Year 3 reading assessment. It goes into full screen mode, which helps minimize any distractions. Okay, so I'm just going to pick out some of the key features of the test and a couple of different question types. So we can see the reading text here. That's designed to be visually appealing and engaging. It can be navigated through by the different page numbers here, or by using the next and previous buttons that we have here as well. Okay, then we can look at the questions. So the first question, it's a multiple choice question, just ensuring they can identify details from the text. And like I say, I'm just going to move through and pick out some of the different question types that you'll encounter in our assessments. So on this one, it's a comparison question where your learners need to match the correct description to the character, and this can be done by dragging and dropping, or it can be done by select and then selecting where you want it to go to. So they may find one of those methods easier than the other. It may also depend on which kind of a device they're using. This question requires text entry. And here we've got a question showing an extract from the text where they can show their understanding of word meaning. So this is a scaffolded version because they can only select from the highlighted words. Okay. So that gives you a little idea. We can see this progress bar here that sort of fills in as they progress through the test, just giving them a visual idea of how far they've got to go. And our tests have also been designed with accessibility at the heart of them and are accessible for all pupils. So we have a tools menu where they can zoom, they can change the size of the text, they can change the different color displays, which may help with any visual stress, and they can pause the test. So should they need to take a break, they're able to pause the timed test and come back to it when they're ready to do so. Okay. At the end of each test, the children are taken to a review page that looks like this. So this encourages the children to check their work. The review page shows which questions have been attempted. So that's when we've got the full orange circle, or which ones they've maybe omitted to respond to. And they can click back and have another go. So that's going to take us back into this question, and we can see if we're able to complete an answer this time round. They can then use review to go back to the review page, or they can use the back and next question buttons to just scroll through. So again, we encourage the children to use all the time that they have to make sure they've responded to all of the questions and given it a good go. So only when they're happy to do so should they click End Test, which then submits the test for marking, and then no longer able to amend any of their answers. So that's an idea of the Year 3 reading test. So this September, our Year 5 and 6 assessments are also available. So I'm just going to go into a Year 6 demonstration test just to show you how the challenge of the text and the questions increases in the different year groups. So, but the format of the test, it looks identical. So we've got our text here on the left, we've got our questions that we can scroll through. So let's have a look. So here again, we've got another extract from the text. This one isn't scaffolded, so they could select any of these words to complete their answer. We've also now in the Year 5 and 6 assessments got the inclusion of 3-mark extended questions, the kind of question that they will encounter in their SATs. So this is an example of a 3-mark question. Again, this is a slightly scaffolded version. We've got the table, which just helps them to structure their response a bit more easily. And again, when they get to the end, they'll have a review page. So I'm just going to come out of that one. And now let's move on to maths. So our maths tests, again, this is our demo one. Our pupil here, they've completed the arithmetic test and they are ready to start with test 2, which is reasoning. Again, on our live product, a maths assessment is made up of 3 different tests, 1 arithmetic and 2 reasoning. But let's have a look at the reasoning test. So again, we're going to be taken into full screen mode. And again, I'm just going to pick out some of the questions to give you an idea. So this is an example of our ruler tool. So the ruler is interactive. It can be picked up, moved around the screen and used to measure an object. And then they can type the answer in the answer box. We've got a statistics question here where they'd need to successfully interpret the pictogram to get that correct. Fractions question. A visual fractions question. So on this one, they need to work out how many carrots represent 3/10, and they could select any 6 of those to get that correct. And this is an example of a show your working question type. So this allows for extended problem solving and marks can be awarded for working out shown even if the final answer is incorrect. So they can enter their working in this box. They can use the symbols to help structure their response. We also recommend that they have paper or a whiteboard to the side to help with their working out as well, which they may then want to copy their working out into the answer box. So they would do their working out in here and put their final answer in the answer box. And again, at the end of the test, they'll get to the review page. So that was an example of a Year 3 maths tests. Now again, let's move through the year groups. So this is a selection of Year 5 and 6 questions. So in these year groups, we have the inclusion of long multiplication and long division questions. So they get a grid, again, very familiar to the kind of grid they'll see in a paper test. They can enter their response. They've got buttons up here that they can use again to show when they've used the exchange number. They can use this one to draw lines across if that helps them structure their response. So again, it's very easy to use. So that's a long multiplication question, a long division question example. So this is a coordinates question. So again, they can click on the dots to draw their lines. Again, they can use the cross to remove a line. So they can do that. So again, it gives them the chance to be assessed by drawing a shape, whereas in lower key stage 2, a coordinates question might be assessed by maybe identifying a coordinate instead. Now we have a protractor that can be again used to measure angles. And on this kind of a question, where they can actually move the dial around to go to a particular angle. So they can either drag it or they can use the buttons on the screen to move it by different increments, again, if they just find that more helpful to do so. So again, we've got show your working questions. So again, you can see the extent of the challenge. So this one requires 4 different calculations to reach the final answer. And because they're showing their working out and they're able to get marks for their working out, it gives you as a teacher valuable insight into what they're able to do as well as what they can't. And a fractions question where the answer can be given as a mixed number or a improper fraction. So hopefully that's given you a nice idea of the look and feel of the tests. So I'm going to come out of that test. Okay, and go back to our establishment portal. So the children have completed their assessments. As a teacher, clearly you will want to know how they've performed. So as Nicola said earlier, the majority of the questions in each test are auto-scored. There's a small element, 30% or less, that do require teacher marking, because that gives you the insight again into how they've tackled the questions. So marking is back in our NOA menu. Let's click on marking. Let's take our maths test here. I'm going to go with question 14, because that was our show your working question we looked at earlier. And there you go. That's an example of, so it comes through straight away. That's the question I just did. I didn't get very far with it. But we can see the learner's name. We can see the question. We can see they're working out. We've got the mark scheme over here on the right to see how we would, what marks we're able to award. And then we give a score using the radio button. So unfortunately, that one is incorrect. I've only got the one learner here who just answered that question. As a teacher working through the marking, you would click on next. That would take you directly to the next learner. Again, you could see how they tackle the question, give them a score, click on next, and move through in quite a slick process. So let's now move on to our reports. So we've got our reporting icon, and we can see some of the reports available here. I'm going to change my learner selection because the reporting data that I want to demonstrate to you is my lions and tigers. So again, you can choose which learners you want to look at with applying a learner selection. So as a teacher, that would obviously normally be your class that you're interested in. Maybe as a senior leader, you might look by year group. You might again look by different classes. So in our reporting suite, we are offering a selection of reports which all monitor attainment and identify learning needs from a completed assessment. So the reports allow you to compare the performance of your learner selection to the national average of the standardised sample, as obviously these are standardised assessments. So when you select a report, you've got a choice of whether you want to look at the overall attainment in the attainment reports. And then we've got specific reports that you can use to analyse performance and help you identify gaps at either curriculum level or question level. We also break them down into all learner, summary and individual reports. So as a teacher, it's likely you'll choose an all learner report. So that will give you summary detail and data by each individual pupil in the class or the group that you've selected. Whereas the summary reports just show the main patterns and trends, the summary detail without the individual detail. And then obviously we've got the individual ones for those occasions when you identify a specific individual you want to look at in a little more detail. So I'm just going to pick out some of these reports to give you an idea of the kind of data that you're able to access. So starting with the Attainment All Learners report. Just press that. Okay, so before we go into the detail here, just all of our reports are consistent in terms of design and layout. So you can see which learner groups you're looking at. You can see how many learners fall in that learner group. You can see which assessment the report is reporting back on. And you've got the key. So we have 5 bandings that will show you the comparison between a learner selection and the national average of the standardisation sample. So again, these are shown in colours that are easy to understand. So this is the Attainment All Learners report, and this is the report that you will go to once your learners have completed an assessment and teacher marking has been done. So you will find out here whether your learners are performing better than or less well than the standardisation sample. So the visual distribution bar shows the percent of learners that fall into each banding and how that compares to the sample. So we can see that my example class here, my learner selection, I've got a higher percentage falling in the well above and the above categories, and I've got fewer pupils falling in the well below. I can also see information and data on the scores achieved by the learner selection in the different tests, the assessment overall, the raw score, and how that compares to the sample. So this is also the report that you will go to see how each learner has performed. So we've got the summary detail here. Then we can see our pupil names. We can see the raw score they got in each test, their assessment total score, standardized score, percentile rank, and age standardized score. And we can see that the standardized score is highlighted as per the key that we just saw. So very easy to see at a glance who is performing above and who is maybe sat below the average of the sample. All of these columns are sortable, so you might find it helpful to maybe sort by the standardized score to group together the pupils in the different bands. And we also have a filters button. So this is available on every report, giving you the chance to filter the data by different pupil characteristic groups. So let's have a look at those pupils in receipt of pupil premium. So our report has updated from showing us data for 15 learners. We can see our distribution bar has updated, and we can see the 2 learners who are in receipt of pupil premium, and we can look at how they've got on. Let's clear the filter off. And also on all of our reports, you're able to export them into Excel if that's something that's helpful to do so. Maybe if you want to import those standardized scores into another assessment tracking software or your MIS system. So that's the Attainment All Learners report. Let's go back to our report menu. and have a look again at, you've maybe looked at the attainment or learners and identified an individual you want to look at in more detail. So this is our individual attainment report. So this is showing us data for Tim. Again, all the learner names are here. You can pick who you want to show. I selected Tim previously, which is why it's remembered his name. So this time we can see the learner's standardized score displayed against the coloured bar. Again, all the colours, all the way we identify the different bands are consistent across all the different reports. So we can see that Tim is performing above the average of the sample. He's sat fairly comfortably within that band. We can see more data itemised down here, including omitted questions. So actually, Tim provided a response to every question. And below that, we've got a table showing the different curriculum areas covered in the assessment, and again, how Tim performed in each of those curriculum areas, which will maybe help you identify where that particular pupil may need more support. And just to show you, we've got a couple of other attainment reports on here. These will show you data across multiple assessments. So this one will show you the learner standardized score across each termly assessment within the same academic year. Whereas the attainment snapshot, which might be helpful to senior leaders, will display multiple year groups and the average standardized score, again, achieved across each termly assessment. So let's look at the other reports that you can run to help identify gaps. So the curriculum area report, so we've got an all learner version of this. We've got a summary report as well. I'm going to go to all learners. So we've got our key, we've got our summary table at the top. So this can be really useful for glancing through to identify where strengths are, where skills are embedded, and maybe where there's weaknesses. So addition and subtraction and problem solving and measurement are highlighted and standing out. Because it's an all learner report, if I scroll down, I can see again all the different learners by name. It's all sortable again. So if I sort by problem solving and measurement, for example, again, grouping together the learners in the different bandings, then instantly I can see the pupils who may benefit from intervention or support in that particular area. So we saw on our reporting menu that there's a summary version of this report as well. So we could have selected that from our report menu. We can also change views when we're in a report. So if I go to view summary, so this is the view that might be more of interest to senior leaders. Again, it's just that at a glance, the key information of which curriculum areas where we're doing well, and again, where maybe less well, but without the individual learner detail. So let's have a look at question level. So I'm going to choose the all learner report again. So again, summary detail at the top. So this is showing that additional level of analysis where you can see by question in the test how your learners have got on. So this grid is color coded, again, in fairly intuitive colors to understand where there's a correct response, where there's an incorrect response, where there's a partially correct response, and maybe the gray is where a response has been omitted. So you can see maybe which questions were found more challenging. So if I look at question 12, very few pupils got full marks on that. I can use the view button to launch the actual question. So I can see that that question required a more extended written response. Maybe that's something we need to practice a little bit more. I can also use the grid to identify the learners who've maybe struggled a little bit more. So maybe Ibrahim, he's got a few reds in there. And again, on the question level, this is the all learners version. There is a summary version as well, which just highlights against the different question numbers, again, where we're performing above and where we're performing below the sample. So the last report I want to show you super quickly before we go to Q&A is the individual responses report. So this is kind of your equivalent of a paper answer booklet. So this is Ibrahim. So we saw on the question level that he got quite a few questions incorrect. So if you want to dig deeper into how he responded, you can look at his responses, and we can see for this first question, for example, he selected, our learner selected father. That was incorrect. The correct answer was cousin. Question 2 was correct. Question 3, this one we can see 2 answers were sorted correctly, but he didn't complete sorting all the answers. So that gives you the insights into how the answers that were actually given. So before I hand you back to Nicola after that quick whistle-stop tour of our system, just going to show you there is a help widget that appears on every page where you can search for online guidance, where you can access a number to access our dedicated support desk, or where you can raise a ticket to go through to our support desk as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing and pass you back to Nicola.
Lovely, Claire. Thank you so much for that this morning. Also, thank you everybody for your engagement as well. And sorry if it looks like I was looking down, but I was actually writing down notes that I could go through now very quickly in my 4 minutes that I've got left, Claire. So I can't go through everybody, but I thought I would highlight some of the questions that came up this morning. Quite at the beginning, Hannah had mentioned about passcodes and can they be printed. They're just like your multiplication check in year 4, so you can print that page, cut them up, hand them out to the children, and they are there live for the whole of that assessment. So you don't need to reprint each morning like you do with the multiplication check. So once you've got them for, say, maths, they can be taken back in and handed back out the next day. Sorry that Debbie had the fire alarm. Nothing worse when you just sat down for a webinar. Hopefully that was a fire drill. Roberto asked about paper and online tests. So what we've been going through this morning are online tests. We do, NFER also have paper assessments too. They're not a replica of each other because the platforms are different, but they are aligned then with the national curriculum. Jamie and Emma asked similar questions around sort of timing. So if the time runs out, because they are timed, so you can get that standardized score, then it does stop. Just like you would say to children, right, end of your time, booklet shut if you were doing paper. Emma asked about extra time. So just like you would do for your year 6s for SATs, you can award extra time of that 25% extra. And you do that when you're allocating the tests. And that could be for your children with EHCPs or who you need what their classroom practice is. Sarah asked about online tests. Will they year 6 SATs go online? Yes, probably at some point. We don't think that will happen in the near future, but who knows? But NFER have introduced online assessments to give you choice. Some schools really want paper, some schools really want online. It is down to you, your pupils, your staff, and the infrastructure you have around IT in your schools. So as you can see, my next bit of paper. Nicola asked about purchasing reading or maths or both. You can choose. You could actually just pick reading in year 3. It doesn't have to be across all year groups and all terms. Andy asked about reading the booklet, so like the reading the text at the beginning. Yes, it's set up like that and you can click through, but they could, depending on your technique of how you would get children to, whether you're skimming and scanning, for example, then they could click through that quickly, then go to the questions, which will allocate then areas of the text to go to, just like you would do on paper. It would say, look at page 3, look at page 4. So depending on your technique and style that you do with your pupils, I'm just conscious I'm running out of time. Rachel asked about more around probably about maths, about writing, sort of working out on whiteboard or on paper and transferring it, and does it take time? No more than I would say children making notes on a paper test. So children can still just write the answer if they want to, but I don't think it's necessarily any different than the paper. but it might just be that the children just be would like with the same as in their class when they're writing it on a whiteboard, and they might then put it in their maths books. We had something about schemes of work. We don't follow schemes of work because that would not work for all schools. If we suddenly said we were following a particular math scheme, we follow the national curriculum and it's aligned to that. Spelling, someone asked about that. I think it's really useful. So spelling, about how might the computer pick up on that. That's going to be mainly around where you would be actually marking those sections. So in the reading ones or in that reasoning, you'd be marking that. So you would be then having that teacher judgment. You know your pupils, so you can then really have a look at that and go, you know what they mean by that misspelling. It's not a spelling test, the reading, it's a reading test, and looking at the comprehension and their understanding of that. Sorry if I haven't got to all of them that were on there. That will be in the follow-up. I'm just going to share my screen just for the last to have a look at that. Sorry, just so I can have a look. Slide, just so you can then see. Really for all of you, it's that Q&A will be in the follow-up for in that email that we will be sending out either today or tomorrow. But there's our email address there if you want to contact us a particular question about your setting, your school and your pupils. There is the interactive free demo that you can sign up for. That will go in the chat now, hopefully. And there is the video sample, which you can share with staff. Also, it's about 8-9 minutes. That gives them a bit of a whistle-stop tour as well. And there is some free tokens. So actually, you can have a play, or your pupils or your school council can have that play that will be coming up in the email as well. So definitely have a look at that to see how you can get that to work in your school. But thank you very much for your time this morning, your engagement. It really makes it worthwhile for us because we want to know what you want to know. And hopefully we've been able to answer those. And Claire, Lisa, Callum and Rupal, thank you very much for this morning.